And Kennington Smith III, theathletic.com, covers Alabama and joins us on 365 Sports. Kennington, thank you for your time. Is it almost like transfer portal PTSD in Tuscaloosa right now?
Yeah, it's crazy right now in Tuscaloosa. You think about this situation that Alabama is in. It's kind of hard to put into perspective when you think about a team that's as talented as this on paper, that is open and exposed to other rosters poaching that talent away, but there's not a portal window open for everyone else for Bama to try to plug those same holes. So they're kind of a sitting duck right now, and that's going to be the case for about 3 more weeks. And, when the dust settles, we'll have a clearer picture of what this roster is and what they'll need to do in the spring window. But it's been a chaotic week for the program for sure.
So Kalen DeBoer was going to have to reset a roster no matter where he went. Do you get an idea about where he's going in the portal right now, or is he just trying to keep all the guys who have not gone in the portal on the roster right now?
Yeah, I think the important thing is roster retention. You have to keep the current players in-house, because at the end of the day, if you're somebody who pays close attention to recruiting rankings, the 24/7 Sports Composite had, 2023 Alabama's most talented roster in the country when you think about the number of blue-chip players. So the talent is in-house. It's the matter of Kalen DeBoer and his staff being able to get in front of as many guys as possible, meet with as many guys as possible, to try to keep the roster intact ahead of spring practice, and then go through a spring practice, let the players get acclimated to your coaching style and your system. And then at the end of spring practice, players can, exit, and they'll have a clearer picture of what their roster is and what holes they need to plug. So I do think retention is at the top of the list, but that's not to say that they're not going to try to add via the portal right now in this moment. There are reports that, their top defensive back, Jabbar Muhammad, is visiting Alabama this weekend, and secondary is obviously a position of need. So Alabama's trying to plug a few holes before spring practice, but I think retention is the number one goal, and everything will kind of take care of itself on the back end.
Kennington, I have to imagine after seeing Saban take the podium so many times, it was a bit surreal to see Kalen DeBoer with that Alabama logo. But what were your thoughts and what were your impressions after hearing him for the first time in that press conference?
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out the most is the confidence that he has. He's someone who's very secure in his own skin, and I think that's a huge prerequisite for somebody who is replacing Nick Saban. And he was very upfront in saying that Saban's going to continue to have access to the program, and he welcomes his input, and he's actually going to require that Saban, gets an input on what the program can continue to get better at. So he's someone who embraces the situation that he's in. I think he kind of recognizes some of the blind spots that he may have, like not having Southern ties and never coached in the South, and he is filling out his coaching staff with people who are, proven in the South, have Southern ties, proven recruiters, good coaches to kind of help fill those gaps. So by all accounts, it's a good hire and somebody who obviously knows how to win. You look at his track record, it's as impressive as any. And Alabama made the right decision in my mind, but, he's kind of in a situation where it's kind of like drinking water out of a fire hose. There's a lot going on, and it seems chaotic right now. But once things level out, I think he'll have a chance to get his feet up under him, and you'll start to see, Alabama trending upward.
Can you clarify, Travaris Robinson now at Georgia, Alabama tried to bring him back. Was there something that DeBoer could have done prior to Georgia offering Travaris Robinson an opportunity or a job or a title?
Yeah, I think in just my opinion of the situation, I feel like maybe, Travaris Robinson was looking for, the defensive coordinator duties straight away. I know that there were interviews going on. Even Nick Saban was in on interviews for certain assistant coaches, so maybe he felt like there wasn't a sure thing he was going to be the defensive coordinator at Bama. There was an opportunity available at Georgia, and Alabama tried to do everything they can to bring him back into the fold. But ultimately, he decided to go to Georgia, and you see the effects of that in the transfer portal right now. You think about that defensive back position. Nick Saban retires, and the defensive backs were his position group, and then you see Travaris Robinson, lead to Georgia. Defensive coordinator Kevin Steele retires as well. So a lot of people who are connected to that defensive back room have left the program, and that's a main reason why defensive back is the most portal out position on the team right now.
What do you think of what he's done, particularly Kalen DeBoer, with the defensive staff of plucking guys that were head coaches, Kane Womack and Mo Linguist, coming aboard to try to hit the ground running on that side of the ball, which, again, loses a long time, great college football assistant in Kevin Steele, and they're going to have to replace a ton of talent anyway, like you said.
Yeah, I think I like the hires. I think it's pretty uncommon that you see somebody being able to poach 2 existing head coaches and add them to assistants on your staff. These are guys who are under the age of 40 years old, young, should be able to relate to recruits. They have Southern backgrounds, and they have had success in coaching their respective positions and at some level as a head coach in Division I. So I like the hires. I think Freddie Roach being retained was huge. Alabama alum, obviously Southern ties, has done a great job with the defensive line, and we'll see what happens with the linebacker position. But Kalen DeBoer, his strategy is starting to reveal itself. I think on offense, he's going with people who he's familiar with and continuity, continuing what they did at Washington and other places. And on defense, he's going for head coaches, people who know the South, young, hungry, and successful coaches. So by all accounts, it looks like a strong initial coaching staff, and it'll be interesting to see how they gel once they kind of all get together and get their feet under them.
Kennington, I know Caden Proctor entered the portal here just recently, but Caleb Downs hit that portal like a nuclear bomb going off across the country. What were your impressions after seeing him this past season?
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Downs is pretty incredible. You think about all of the great players that Nick Saban has coached, and you could argue that Caleb Downs was the most decorated freshman of them all. He was National Freshman of the Year, the Sean Alexander Award. He was an All-American. He was all SEC Freshman of the Year, and he was the first ever freshman to lead Alabama in tackles, and that's a record that dates back over 40 years. So, super accomplished player. Sky is the limit, and for someone so young, he was seen as a reliable player and a leader on the team. So that, above all, is the most massive loss that Bama has suffered in the portal, and it's going to be difficult to replace a talent like that.
Kennington, is there so they're losing players. That's obvious. We showed the 2 deep, and there's a lot of lines crossing out names, including today with Downs and Proctor, et cetera. There's still time, about a month before the last signing day, maybe less than that now, actually 2 or 3 weeks, plus they eventually can get some to come there. Is that enough time, in your opinion? They still have talent on the roster, but is that enough time to meet the expectations?
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be the challenge for Alabama fans, is to temper the expectations. I think Saban created a culture and a beast where it was the national championship or bust type of season year in and year out, and they were able to play under that standard under Nick Saban. But this is a new coach, this is a new time period, this is a new era of college football. So I think if you're setting your expectation at making the college football playoff, I think this is a team that at this moment has a skeleton to do so. There's a lot of talent returning on the team. There's a lot of young talent. And to your point, when the transfer portal window opens up in April, Alabama is going to be the destination school. There are kids and there are players across the country that are seeing what's happening at Alabama. And when the portal opens in the spring, Alabama is going to be in a situation where it's a premier team, premier brand that has needs at certain positions. And when players enter the portal in the spring, they are going to be at the front of the line for a lot of high-level players. So I think that there's an opportunity to revamp the roster in the post-spring window, and we'll see what happens when the dust settles. We don't even know who's going to be on Alabama's team going into spring practice. So I think it's kind of premature to kind of project out the team and what it could be. But just in my opinion, I think if you look at the young talent and what they could, should, or are expected to add in the portal in the spring window, this is going to be a viable team next year.
Well, and look, they haven't suffered the major loss at quarterback like other teams have either in the portal, at least yet. I mean, not to say that it couldn't, because everything's in the water, but being able to bring back Jalen Milroe and Simpson and Lonergan, at least at that position, saves Kalen DeBoer and staff probably a lot more time than they would have to go looking for, tight ends and wide receivers and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got one of the best quarterback, rooms, certainly in the SEC, you could argue, in the country. Justice Haynes and Jim Miller at running back. They have a good tight end room. They have receivers who have potential on the roster. Tyler Booker on the offensive line, Jaden Roberts on the offensive line, and they got couple of stars on defense as well. Malachi Moore at safety, linebackers, Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. I could go on and on, but this is a roster that has high level, all SEC level players on it. The depth is really what is hurting Alabama right now in the transfer portal. They're not losing a lot of the mainline stars outside of the Caleb Downses, but the depth at certain positions is really hurting them right now, and that's going to be something to watch as we move forward.
Do you think Saban would have done this if he'd known what the shrapnel would look like?
Well,
or maybe that's why he left in the first place, because he knew that all this, this is part of college football now.
Yeah, I think no matter what time period he was going to retire, I don't think it was ever going to be a great time. I guess the most ideal time would be, let's say if Bama didn't make the SEC championship and he retired at that point. Well, they would be able to pull guys in as guys left, but there would still be a bowl game to prepare for. So there would just be a lot of things happening no matter what point in the calendar it would be. So there really isn't a great time. This is the era of college football that we're in, and it's something that we're going to have to watch moving forward is the effects that a coach retiring or leaving the program at a particular part of the year has on that program. And if Jim Harbaugh decides to go to the NFL with Michigan, the same thing is going to happen to them. So it's even going to intensify the topic should that happen. So I think it's something that college football is going to have to reevaluate and fix the calendar to try to mitigate some of these potential risks.
Kennington, it's been a busy time for you all of a sudden. What were you doing when you heard that Nick Saban was going to retire?
Okay. Are y'all ready for this?
Yes, sir.
True story. It was my birthday. I was halfway from Tuscaloosa to Atlanta, my hometown. I was meeting my family for dinner. So I'm halfway there, and my phone starts blowing up. So I called my parents. I canceled dinner. I looked up the nearest Starbucks in my GPS. Luckily, there was one a mile away, and I posted up in that Starbucks for the next 3 hours. And then I drove back to Tuscaloosa.
Happy birthday, Kennington, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. With everything that's happening in the portal, then spring practice and summer recruiting, I think I'll wait till the dead week in July to celebrate my birthday.
I don't know if there ever is going to be a dead week in college football ever again.
I hope you get to do it before then.
Yeah, good for you though. I mean, you're doing your job. You're a baller when it comes to that. To stop, and you knew you had no choice. And hopefully, your mom and dad. Obviously, you mentioned your parents, and you'll have fun when you see them eventually. But maybe they can come see you and have dinner in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, no, my parents are huge college football fans. So they understood it. Yeah. They understood what it meant in that moment. And, like you said, this is my job, but this is a historic moment. And this was an opportunity for me to be a part of history and continue to be a part of history. I mean, everything that happens from this point on, post-Saban, is going to feel like a monumental moment because it's going to feel so new. So just to be in this moment, I feel honored, and my birthday was memorable, if nothing else.
Thank you, Kennington. Great stuff, a lot of great insight. Good luck going forward with all the things that are happening almost, it seems like, about every other hour with the Crimson Tide. Kennington Smith III.